On the 10th of June 1944, the village of Oradour-Sur-Glane was attacked by German troops from the 2nd Waffen-SS Panzer Division.
642 residents, including a few cyclists passing by, were rounded up.
The women and children were taken to the church, where they were tear-gassed, then shot as they tried to escape the burning church.
The men were taken to various barns and other buildings where they too were shot before the buildings were set alight. After the war, the then French President, Charles de Gaulle, decreed that the village should be left exactly as it was, as a monument and to remember the souls that perished. We're going to take a walk down through the main street of the village and talk about it as we go. It'll be a bit itty bitty because I have to use Google Translate. So as we come down the main street, we've got the tram tracks. Here's the cement works. Cafe behind.
That's a cafe, isn't it? Oh, it was a cafe.
So this, got a car here, by the looks of it.
So just think, all these buildings are literally destroyed
Would have been a hive
by the Nazis.
A hive of industry would have been, well, it's communities, the whole community destroyed.
Yeah.
Imagine those who did escape. I'm not talking about the ones who were shot or shot at and survived. I'm talking about the people who jumped on the tram to go to the neighbouring town for work. And so I think some kids went out to schools out of the area, and then they came home to this.
What's this one then?
Cabinet doctors.
Oh, it's the doctors, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's doctor's surgery
It's his house.
or his house, his personal house, where he might have conducted a surgery, of course.
Let's see. I'm not sure what that is there. Some kind of bed frame. There's a sewing machine there, look. Sewing machine there.
Yeah.
A fabric shop.
Well, they would have supplied fabric, I would imagine, to the locals, because back in the day, a hell of a lot of people made their own clothes, didn't they?
Yeah.
Dresses and stuff. Had those paper patterns, didn't they? Do you remember? My mum had those. And was it? But this chap would make them. He'd also probably supply fabric to the village as well as the one further up, and also made things up.
You can see a fireplace there, look. And there's another one over here as well, that's a fireplace.
There, obviously,
Yeah.
upstairs. You'd imagine that his business was downstairs.
Maybe his accommodation were upstairs, maybe that's a bed frame, maybe.
Accommodation, yeah, accommodation.
Yeah.
Above the shop. He may have. It was quite a big space. He may have had some fabric storage upstairs as well, but certainly it was big enough, especially with a fireplace there, to imply that that was his apartment. 6 cyclists actually just wandered into the village on the morning of cycling into the village. Probably went to that cafe up there. Surprised, you know, have a coffee and a bit of lunch, maybe a croissant.
Yeah.
And they were caught up with it all as well, obviously.
Yeah. It's pretty sad, is this? You can't comprehend, really, the atrocities. It's a hotel restaurant, this here. So you can imagine, you know, business booming at one point. Is that a chauffeur?
No.
What is it then?
Hairdresser.
Hairdresser's shop.
There's hairdressers.
It's absolutely in ruins, isn't it?
It's what?
Ruins.
Oh, yeah.
When people park the vehicles and the bikes, these what we're seeing here is literally where they left them on that day. It's not like the museum or anybody has removed them and
Replaced them, yeah.
somewhere else or somewhere different.
Sewing machine on that wall there.
So this is where the probably
Knitting shop. Probably sold knitting needles as well, you don't know, do you?
you could buy wool from.
Yeah,
People knitted a lot back then.
they did.
I
Yeah.
think this over here is quite obvious.
Oh, it's obvious what this is, isn't it? Oh, wow. Look at that.
Don't need
Google Translate for that one.
Well, I can see the garage on here. It's in the garage.
Yeah. And those signs are in remarkably good condition, considering the place was torched. Renault. Ooh, get out the light. Renault. Obviously, this is a garage.
I can just see a car.
I think there's quite possibly two there, I'm not sure. Chewed up. Buckled and twisted from the sheer heat. Coming onto the main village now. Not sure what this thing is.
It might be a signal box. Maybe a signal box.
I'm not sure.
There's a group of men.
This is one of the ones where some of the men were massacred in this barn.
If you look up there, let me zoom that in for you. You can just see the top of a car there. Pieces of equipment and looks like wheels there. Could there be cart wheels?
Blacksmith.
Yeah.
Blacksmith, to be precise.
And bicycle there propped up against the wall, and there's a bicycle sort of hanging on the wall.
Well, let's face it, things were moving on to sort of more mass production and factories and such like. So blacksmith would have diversified, wouldn't he? So he would have also, as well as blacksmithing, he probably would have also quite possibly been a bicycle repair shop.
So this was a cafe and a hairdresser's.
Yeah. So I'm sure the ladies would all come in there, come for a coffee while some of them were getting their hair done.
Yeah.
Diversification of businesses of the business. Now this car is very, very famous. This is actually the doctor's car.
Yeah, it literally just left there on the morning of the 10th of June 1944.
Patisserie.
Patisserie. The bakery, cake shop.
And that's like a pan thing, is like the sort of thing you put in a big oven.
Yeah, that's literally left hanging as it was on that day.
And
I can see a sewing machine just right down there as well.
right.
I think that's a butcher's. Is this one? Shocking. Imagine people. Literally. Yeah.
Butcher's shop.
I'm not even sure what that actually means, but imagine people doing the day-to-day, every life thing. Kids going to school. It was a Saturday, wasn't it?
Yeah, the kids still went to school on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they had a lot of refugees that they're taken in because of the Nazi invasion of other countries. They'd moved from further east, I think. So some of the kids that were rounded up and murdered were escaped refugees. They went to a separate little school.
people running
That's some sort of large. That's quite a large one.
Yeah, I can imagine people running the business. The butchers and cake shops and veg.
Well, we've seen some pictures where they just stood chatting in the street.
There's so many other channels that will do this more justice.
We've watched some great YouTube content telling this story. we're just showing you, giving an overview. You know, I'd absolutely, with all our videos, I'd absolutely wholeheartedly recommend that if anything interests you, have a look in more detail on some channels that are going to do it
Yeah.
in far greater depth than we ever can.
I mean, we're just, you know, literally learning about it, really.
Well,
But we wanted to come and see this for a while, haven't we?
We do know about it, we know all about it, but we're not going to be experts like everything else we ever do.
I'll just have a little glance up here. It's huge, is this place. So when the then French President Charles de Gaulle decided to leave this as it was, as a memorial, they built another village of Oradour-Sur-Glane not far away from here. So I think that's probably the boundary up there. Look at these cars.
I would say, given the number of cars and such like in this village, that it was actually a pretty affluent village. That's the impression I get.
Well, they didn't have a huge population before the war.
Quite a few motor cars. I know my mother said when she was a little girl, so probably mid-1930s, that literally in Whitby, there's possibly a similar size, well, it's probably a bigger town than this being a village, but in Whitby in the mid-30s there were 2 cars in Whitby. There was a doctor and a dentist. They were the only 2 people who had cars in the mid-1930s, whereas 10 years on, this village, quite a few cars. I don't know if that was because it was the change, or whether it was as affluent as the impression I get. Who knows?
Right, I do know about this one a bit. So I think it was about 6. Yeah, 6. 6. Yeah, 6 men. No, they were executed in this barn.
Just 6? Okay.
Yeah, I think didn't they hide? There was one where he hid under another, and he could feel his hair on fire, and he had what do they do? What do they call it when they get the guns ready to shoot?
Popcorn.
That's it, yeah. And he heard him going to shoot, and he shot his friend next to him. I think the hairdresser, one of the hairdressers, the barber, sorry, at the time, he was the one that got shot in this barn.
Wasn't the other chap laying on top of him and he was shot? And this guy took the bullet, but it had all its velocity taken out of it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't killed.
Yeah. So, yeah, 6 men passed away in here, murdered by the Nazis. Yeah. There's another vehicle over here. I put this on a par with actual Auschwitz, don't you? In a similar sort of sense.
It's on that level, but obviously the scale was so totally different. So totally different.
Oh, look at
Huge
this.
Scale.
Yeah.
So
it reminds me of the look of Pompeii, but
it does, doesn't it?
But it's obviously it was a different situation. This looks like it could have been like a big shop window. And I can see a sewing machine right over there. So we're just coming up to where the church is, and this is where the lives of women and children were taken. Where they were trying to set off explosives. But
they went round them all up into the church.
Yeah.
They set off incendiaries, which are like fire bombs, aren't they?
Yeah, and tried to escape in the burning church.
It's been 400.
I'm sorry, but I'm quite lost for words in this place.
It's terrible.
Yeah, come on, let's have a look. Obviously, it would have had a spire on top. That's before fire. Let's see what it says on here. Women and children massacred by the Nazis. Metal font, metal from the heat. Over here, when this church was on fire, it's said that, well, it's reported and believed that the children hid behind this.
And all the women went behind, hoping to save the children.
Yeah.
But wouldn't get many.
Yeah. You want to get many. What they did, the women, the mothers, left this space for the children to hide from the heat and smoke.
There was a lady who handed out through this window.
Yeah.
And she fell to the ground, and then another lady with a baby tried to follow her. She was making the woman
To take the
ground
baby.
to catch the baby, but at that point, both she and the baby were shot dead.
Well, the mother, the baby, cried and it alerted the Nazis. They went then shot the baby and the mother, but I can't remember her name, and I'll put it on the screen, but she escaped and laid in some kind of vegetable patch not far away, waiting until the worst had passed so she could escape. Look at this. Pram. Imagine the children in here.
Okay.
Even on here, if you look, there's the memorial boards for the First World War. And this here is where the Nazis shot at it.
Bullet holes.
Yeah, bullet holes from the Nazis. They shot at this memorial board.
Little respect.
Yeah, for the men that died during the First World War.
Shameful.
Yeah. Bullet holes from the Nazis. Yeah. Even here, look, you'll see bullet holes when they're trying to shoot them as they were trying to escape. Yeah. Look. Bullet holes from the Nazis as the women and children were trying to escape. Yeah. You'll see them all over, actually. Now I've just come out at church and oh my word.
7 cars?
Well, this village was all set ablaze. Can you imagine how hot it would have been really close by? And how far away they may have spotted it burning with all the smoke and flames.
Who would have spotted it burning?
Nearby villages. I mean, can you imagine? But then there's so many children that came to school in this place, and the parents and that came to collect them, and obviously found the village burning, and they wondered where the relatives were, the children and things.
The people who left work on top of that tram or went in a motor car to nearby town or village for work and come home to this.
The worst bit for me is the church. It's about little kids, little children in there.
Yeah, but when we've been to Auschwitz, it was the same, wasn't it? Children's clothes.
Yeah.
It was the same.
You see that pram and it's like really, really disturbing.
Right.
I find it's just so... I can't understand how
How
I
big
know the Nazi regime was brutal. But
Well, look at the Holocaust
the men, human beings, how they can kill another human being?
in cold blood.
Children.
In war, yes.
They must have had children at home. How can they do it?
Well, Hess at Auschwitz, his children, the inmates could hear Hess' children playing in the garden, and while the children in the prison were being in the concentration camp were being herded into the gas chambers because they had no economic value.
Yeah.
You know.
I just find that's the worst bit, looking there, seeing
How a human can sink to that level of pravity doesn't bear thinking about.
it's just I've no words. So this was a cafe and a hairdresser's again, and there's even was this like a table so you can probably have your cup of coffee there. It's made of stone. There's even chairs there. And if you look at the back of the church, you'll see those windows.
How high she's jumped from.
It's a lot. Well, she jumped, didn't she? We'll get round here.
At least, I suppose, when she landed, she'd have rolled down that slope, I guess.
I suppose so. But she managed to survive. I don't know when she died, but it wasn't for decades later. She survived for decades afterwards.
Like all these victims of these horrific crimes, she must have been traumatised.
But one of these windows here is where the lady we were talking about, I'll put the name on the screen again, and she jumped out on these windows to escape the church that was burning, followed by a lady with a baby. But unfortunately the baby started to cry or make a noise, and it alerted the Nazis, so the Nazis shot the baby and the mother. But the lady we were talking about, she got shot, but she managed to escape and go to hide in some kind of garden or vegetable patch or something till, I don't know, the next day maybe.
Not until they've gone.
And I'm going to have to put a name on the screen because I can't remember it.
Well, we haven't got a script.
So we think this is the place where the Nazis had all the villagers and any visitors rounded up, and they were led to this spot because they were told they were going to have an identification check.
Yeah, ID checks. I've had to bring their papers.
But that clearly was a lie, because they knew what the plans were at the time. The Nazis already knew they were just going to massacre everybody. They ordered everybody, including the elderly and the sick. Everyone had to, and the schools.
The last thing they wanted to do was leave witnesses, wasn't it?
Yeah, everybody had to evacuate all their buildings and be rounded up onto this spot because they were told there was an identity check. I'm finding this just well, unbelievable. It's just, you can't comprehend. It's a memorial here. It's a memorial here.
A memorial. Let's have a look at that.
Yeah, and I think
Beyond is the cemetery where these are laid to rest, I think.
yeah, there is, isn't there? So we'll go have a look at that. But I actually believe that it was the right thing to do to preserve this site.
Absolutely the right thing to do.
I do. I think there were other villages that this happened to, but not quite as poignant as this, though, was it? I'm not sure which there were.
There were other massacres, normally out of retribution for officers, Nazi officers, being kidnapped or killed. So if resistance killed half a dozen Nazi officers, they'd round up just a random 100 people in a village and shoot or hang them.
Well, this was a retaliation, wasn't it? Because the French resistance at the time, they managed to sabotage many of the Nazis' advance.
For a start, the platoon, or whatever you call it, that this group couldn't go with their heavy vehicles via their preferred mode of transport, which is rail. They had to go by road because the French resistance had sabotaged the rail lines, and then I think an officer or officers had been kidnapped. I'm not sure if they'd been murdered also.
Well, we went into the cemetery and we decided that we didn't want to film. There's graves dedicated to whole family generations, young children as well, and it's
3-4 generations.
Yeah.
From 2 to 72.
Yeah, or older.
And some as many as 6 or even 8 in the same family.
Yeah, but also
all different ages and generations.
But also, what we did know about was there's like a little casket type thing with glass over the top, with bones, jaw bones, skulls, parts of skulls, and a child's hand.
Which is the skeleton. It's
still got the fingernail and some skin, all charred, of course, but it's still, the mother recognised.
The mother recognised her child's own hand.
Yeah.
She kept it for 2 years before she
decided to entomb it. Yeah.
To give it up.
But we decided not to film any of that.
No.
We thought it's probably not appropriate.